Hello, welcome back to part 3 of our first processing project. Is it just me or is the screen really dark? That's weird, huh? Anyway, in today's video we're going to add together the jumping block and sliding block from the last two videos. The goal is to have the player be able to jump over the sliding block as it gets faster and faster. First, we'll add our two previous pieces of code together and check that they still work. Great, it seems to be working, but we're going to need some sort of game over for when the player hits one of the sliding blocks. I'm just going to write some pseudocode to try to wrap my head around how to check if the two blocks are touching. Okay, so I drew this little diagram to help me visualize when the blocks would be overlapping. There's an x-axis overlap when the enemy block's x1 value is between the player's x1 and x2 value, but that's not the only time there's an x-axis overlap. The player and enemy would also be overlapping when the enemy's x2 value is between the player's x1 and x2. And then we have the same thing happening for the y-axis. When both the x-axis and the y-axis are overlapping, the player is touching the enemy and should get a game over. To try and implement this, we're going to need variables that define the player and enemy's x1, x2, and y1 and y2 positions. The player's x1 is equal to the px variable. That's the position that we drew the player rectangle because it starts at the top left corner. So the player's x2 will just be px plus the width of the player. The player's y1 is py, and y2 is py plus height. And height is just equal to width in this case because it's a square. And for the enemy, x1 is equal to xpos, that's a bad variable name, and x2 is xpos plus enemy width. y1 is 270, and y2 is 270 plus enemy width. I'm just writing three Boolean functions, one that returns true when x overlaps, one that returns true when y overlaps, and one that returns true when x and y both overlap. Ah, damn it. Why didn't the screen go white? That should have been a game over. The hit function must not be returning true. Okay, I watched a coding train video, link below, and we're not going to do this anymore, we're going to do this. We're going to have X and Y positions that define the center of the player and the enemy. And if these D1 and D2 values are both less than half of the player width plus half of the enemy width, then there is overlap and the player should get a game over. No luck. Maybe I need to put all this into draw. Yes, X overlap detection is working. Time for Y. Looks like it's working. It's hard to tell. Let's just try throwing them both together and get a game over. Okay, it's flashing white. It's not exactly what I wanted, but it looks like the collision detection is working. It just needs some refining on what to do when there is actually a collision. It's kind of fun. Okay, moving on. I'll put this 2-second delay here to make it clear to the user that they've hit a block and reset the block back to the start, the speed back to 3, and then set the counter back to 0. Okay, look, it's not perfect, but this is all we've got time for. Next time I'll refine this a bit. I might need to add a scoring system and maybe some graphics for the player, enemy, and background. Thanks for watching.